This is a Black Nouveau digital presentation. Hello, I'm Earl Larms, and we're continuing our conversation with David Hallman, founder and creator of the Black String Triage Ensemble, which was captured in a documentary by filmmaker Marquise Mays. Both are here with me right now. And David, talk about the type of music that is played, because it's not all classical, right?
Correct. So the Black String Triage Ensemble pulls from a variety of genres. All the composers from within those genres are Black or Latin. And so it could be classical, it could be gospel, it could be soul, it could be reggae, it could be tango, it could be mariachi, it could be blues, it could be jazz, it could be folk, it could be gospel, it could be soul. I don't know how we would tackle rap. I think the setting might be a bit averse to that, and on strings, not necessarily pleasant. So I don't think we'll be doing that, but everything else I believe is fair game.
So what's your musical background? Because you just named a lot of genres there, so I'm assuming you have a lot of expertise in all of those.
I grew up in the Church of God in Christ, so firmly rooted in African American gospel, but also classically trained on piano, violin, viola, and clarinet. So I'm heavily rooted in those too. But what you get across, the cross-pollination and all the things between is jazz, blues, soul, funk, right? It's all the other stuff. And certainly given the fact that I do strings as well as woodwinds and a little bit of keyboards from time to time, I'm in a lot of different environments doing a lot of different genres. So classical and gospel are my favorite. They're a great passion of mine. But I think for the task at hand in terms of what we do as Black String Triage, there needed to be something that was much broader in terms of a conversation about who we are and why we are, because it needs to speak to whatever that critical moment is that we must touch with the ancestors and come to a place of consolation and understanding and let healing and hope begin.
I was just going to ask you that. How do you decide what type of music you play when you get to a scene?
Well, we assess the environment. Sometimes if you get there too early, then people are still finding out, and nobody wants to hear anything, right? So first, that's the first thing. Second is there anybody that might be grieving? Because that's somebody that you don't necessarily want to be in the vicinity of. Walk with them, but give them space, right? And then the third question becomes, really, where is the police tape at? Where does it make sense for you to position yourself to be heard? And I would say heard loosely. It's we're the string ensemble that comes out of the mist to provide, a musical cushion and then leave. We're not really, you're there to be present, but not interfere. And we try to assess carefully to walk that line. And so there's two different programs of music. There's an A program and a B program. Each of them are 6 pieces each, right? To go from despair to faith. Despair, personally, I usually like to start with the spiritual, because as people of African descent, when something happens that we find so incredibly unbelievable, so shocking, something that we believe could never be, that we had gotten over, we never thought would enter our sphere, is that moment when we dial in and say, where can I find some understanding on this? If it's nobody living currently, where in the historical timeline can I place this for it to make sense? And I think that's a despair moment. So for me, I use that as a point of departure. So usually that's a spiritual, right? That's a spiritual. Anger is a little more complex, because there can be different kinds, right? There's the anger when you broke your mom's vase, but then there's the anger when you were out a little too late and mama was waiting for you in the dark when you came home, right? Those are two very different kinds of anger. So because I think classical in the modern moment, it is complicated for us, and it shouldn't be, unfairly so, and I can get into that. I try to use that to represent anger because it allows us space to give it what we feel it, right? when you pull from jazz or blues or folk or reggae, oftentimes there's lyrics assigned, right? So the idea is a bit more fixed. So I try to be sensitive to those things.
So Marquise, you talked about creating a longer documentary. When might that happen?
We're working very hard on it. I think the beauty about storytelling and documentary is that there's no set timeline because the participants that we're following are living real lives. And we want to be sensitive to the lives that they're living while also trying to be sure that we're there for the moments that matter. So for right now, we're taking a step back and really trying to figure out from what we recorded and what we filmed with the ensemble. Yes, we had to condense and make all the footage we have into a 12-minute short. The goal now is to rehash all of that old footage and really see what stands out for a longer piece, and then revisit the ensemble to see how much has changed since we started filming with them back in 2020.
We have about a minute left. I just want you to get into maybe, what are some of those things that we haven't seen yet and what we could see in a longer piece?
Yeah, so my goal is to make the film more of an observational study of the ensemble. So to look at what they're doing in their day-to-day. All of the people in the ensemble are exceptional people who have interesting relationships to grief that I think all members meet at this one moment together with their grief, with things that they carry and choose to do this. So the goal of the longer documentary is what happens in a person's day-to-day that pushes them to do this work. And then for allowing the audience to reflect on our own personal moments and what allows us to push to do what we need to do for our communities.
Marquise, David, thank you so much for joining us here. And you can find a link to Black Strings on our website at milwaukeepbs.org.